Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast. This is a podcast all about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like to talk about all the games that we run, the games that we play, and the cool, wonderful people we get to experience the hobby with. And hey, if you're kind of dabbling around on any of the TTRPGs that we talk about on the show, maybe, run it for your friends or convince your GM to run it. But I would say that if you're a player at someone's table, maybe it's your turn to just jump behind the GM screen and run a game for your table. It's super fun, super easy, and we love it.
Indeed, it is a great hobby. And it's a hobby full with a bunch of different games, and that's what we're getting into this week, because this week we're going to be talking about Mutants and Masterminds 4th edition. A playtest, the Origin edition, was put out a couple of weeks ago. I made some characters, I ran some stuff. I have some thoughts, and I will be talking about them as well. I do want to make a note that I know once we put this out, there's going to be a stream for the Mutants and Masterminds Monday show where they're going to be updating on how the playtest is going and everything. So if anything pops up out of that, then, I'll make some future notes on it. But this is just going to be more my immediate thoughts on how I felt about playing this new version of the game that I've been playing semi-regularly for like 4 years now. But before we get into all that, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
It's the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by me. I guess, I don't know if this is really a tip of the week, but I would say that GMs don't spawn out of the ether. They are forged, at the table. It's very funny because we were just before recording, we were talking about how, we might introduce Tim to Calvin's GM grandpa, which is Steven, who we had on the channel very long
years
time
ago. Yeah.
Years ago. Steven is my first GM, and I'm Calvin's first GM, and then Calvin ran for Tim, and then Tim basically is our GM now. So it's kind of funny how, tabletop RPGs, as much as people are afraid, I think, a little bit, or intimidated, like we said at the beginning, of GMing, go for it. We love it when there's more GMs. The whole hobby gets better when there's lots of GMs and players take turns and things like that. And yeah, the tip is if you are a player at someone's table and you've never GM before and you have some ideas, just go run a one shot for your folks. The GM will love it, and I think everybody at the table will love it too. So just do it.
Yeah, every time someone new runs a game, they always come in with different ideas. Tim has different ideas that he does for games that we wouldn't normally do in our games. Even with Stephen, I remember one of his games that I was in was one that we were high level characters, but we didn't know what was on our character sheet. We didn't even know what class or ancestry we were. We just had to see what we looked like from other people's eyes and then start doing things and then learn our abilities as we went. And I've seen people talk about that, but I haven't been in a game where anyone has actually run that sort of thing. And it was an interesting idea that, no one else in our group has done.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think that we take a little bit apart from our GMing style. It's extension of and a modification of our previous GM style. You take a little bit from other people and you make it your own. Like we always say on this channel, you steal what's good and use it. Your game will always be unique and different from your GM's game or your current GM's game, and that's a good thing, and people are excited for that.
Yes. It's selfishly, I do love when people run new things because I get to experience new stuff.
Oh yeah, and man, I don't know, I just don't think that I can pull off I think everyone's different too. Tim's really good at pulling heartstrings and twists and stuff and making things feel awful, which is weird, but I can't do that. I literally don't think I'm able to do that. But if you're looking for a cool power punch everybody super powered game, I'm there for that, as well as I do tend to make funny witch noises a lot. So that's where I am. I'm pretty sure I beat Tim in the cool witch noises.
You do have that down pretty well. All right, let's hop into the episode. Like I said, this week we're talking about Mutants and Masterminds 4th edition. Third edition came out like 2011, I want to say, and not check and correct myself. So it has been around for a long while, certainly. There are certainly a lot of resources for it. There are more on the horizon. I will mention that at least Vigilante's Handbook and the Event Horizon adventure are still coming from Green Ronin. They will be for third edition. The Event Horizon book, which is going to focus on the Preserver Stones and collecting all of them and being super powerful and universal and whatever. It will have some stuff that you can use to basically, like, crisis reboot your comic book universe into 4th edition. So if anybody wants to have their Flashpoint moment, there you go.
I was gonna say, finally, a canonical reason to switch the rules, right? I appreciate them baking it in. I mean, to be fair, I think Pathfinder and Starfinder kind of did that a little bit with their whole god exploding and/or
That's true.
The world disappearing. So we always appreciate canonical stuff.
Yeah, Starfinder did blow up a whole planet for 2nd edition, so that's fair.
Yeah.
But, so what I wanted to do with this is basically, I had the playtest book, I read through some of it, I made some notes on some of the changes that I saw. As well, I played a couple of adventures, I just did one round of a couple of things. I made some characters, first off. Some of them starting from, like, I had an idea of a person, so how do I build this? And some of them starting from, the book has these templates you can use to start building a character. I looked at a template and came up with a character from that. And then I ran them through the Doom Room, which was posted on the Atomic Think Tank if you are a member of that group. And I also ran through the Heist, which is a very basic Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition adventure you can use to basically start off a campaign. It's just a bank heist. But there were some notes posted that you could use to update that to 4th edition. Mostly the stat blocks, really. So I'm basically just going to go through my notes, just talk about how I feel about the game, and hopefully people find that interesting as a springboard for a conversation. If you are planning to play this game or interested in this game, just drop some comments below on your thoughts on it as well. But let's just get in with the basics.
I'm excited to hear what you have to say, because again, this is like the most game you've ever played. So,
yeah,
like you're pretty invested. I was like,
it's definitely. I feel like I don't know if that I've run this as much as Pathfinder, but I've probably played this more than Pathfinder.
Yeah. I think that Pathfinder for us is our go-to when we play, but I think that for you, it's you consistently every week. It's been you and Bowman, I guess. I think it's Bowman, right?
It's usually Bowman. Sometimes it's Alara, the psychic from space, and sometimes it's the magical girl who's super strong. But basically, I have been over on the Untold Stories Project channel streaming Mutants and Masterminds pretty much every week for like 4+ years now.
Yeah.
So, it's near and dear to my heart. One of the things that is a key part of this game, one of the things that Green Ronin is trying to do is simplify the game, especially in character creation. And so we start off with the basics of making a character. And one of the basic building blocks is the ability scores, which is something that's, very common in D20 based RPGs. In the previous edition of the game, there were 8 base ability scores, but here they have been sort of divided up differently. So essentially there are 6 core abilities instead of 8. They're divided into categories. So you have your physical ones of strength, stamina, and agility, and then your mental ones of intellect, awareness, and presence. And for people who know the game, this means that fighting and dexterity are removed. Fighting was used for basically your melee attack checks, as well as your melee defense, and dexterity was used for your ranged attack checks and some skills. Those things have been moved into other numbers, basically. And they could be sometimes irrelevant for certain character builds. For me, they were pretty highly relevant because, like dexterity you use for your ranged attacks, fighting you use for like your melee-based things, and I was playing, a martial artist archer, so I needed the dexterity for my ranged attacks, I needed the fighting for my kung fu, because I wasn't working with superpowers. So I wasn't really sometimes I wouldn't be using like the same numbers other people would be using. Like I wouldn't use my strength score as much, for example. I would have like something in the suit that makes him do damage. But those have been moved around, and this is one of the major changes that I'm getting used to, is that now it's essentially an ability score, but there's an ability for attack and ability for defense. These are your combat abilities. So instead of putting points into like fighting or something like that, you essentially put points into your attack ability score, and that increases all of your attack rolls. You can specify them with skills and advantages, which are essentially feats. You can specify whether you're better at close or range attacks, which is kind of how it functions in the previous edition. But instead of, having like, you increase your fighting to get better at melee or your dexterity, it's just like they're one thing. You just increase your attack, you're better at all your attacks, and then you can dilute from there.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're building a character, you then have to put points into your attack and defense ability score. And for people who might not know, because I didn't mention it up front, Mutants and Masterminds is a point-based system. So when you're creating a character, you're not so much selecting different options at different levels, as much as you spend points to have different values or different amounts of like certain things. So like you spend 2 points and you get 1 more point in strength or something like that. So the way it works for attack checks now is you put 2 points in your attack ability score and it goes up by 1, or you can delineate further down with your advantages, which are going like feats, and you can just level up all your close attacks or all your range attacks, and then you can do that even further down with a skill, but that applies to a very specific one. So say you're just really good at guns. Instead of spending points on other things, you can spend points on the gun skill. And those are a lot cheaper than like spending it on the advantage or on the ability score. So again, you can still specify, but it's just that you have this broader thing of just attack now.
I guess that's cool. I mean, I guess if you wanted to like do 2 things at once, what you would do is you would just kind of put everything into the attack. Oh, you could put more weight into the attack and then you have more flexibility, or you can just be skilled at one, like a specific things and just be more, I guess, I was going to say specific, but more focused.
Yeah, pretty much. It is something that I do have to get used to again, because when I did my small playtest, one of my characters, I was like, why is their attack thing so low? Why can they not hit anyone? Oh, I forgot, they are better at ranged attacks. I just was looking at their general attack value, not their range attack value. So it is like a bit of an extra number that you have to know, but that might just come with playing and getting used to it. When it comes to defense, it's largely the same thing. In 3rd edition, you have different defenses. You have your parry defense for melee attacks, and your dodge defense for ranged attacks. And again, now you just have one single defense value, which again, you can also split up between, like, maybe you're better at defending yourself against range attacks or whatever. I will say that because of the way the game worked, at least for me, whenever I built a character, the parry and dodge defense were always the same value, because the way the game works is you have certain trade-offs. Like, if you have a high defense, then you might have a low toughness, and that's just how durable your character is. If you have a high fortitude, you might have a lower will, just to balance things out and keep them within a certain range for characters at a certain level. I always ended up making my dodge and parry the same thing, so now that it's one number, that's a little easier. You can specify it again, but that I'm more okay with. I mean, that I'm more fine with than attacks, which are a thing I have to adjust to. The defense, the way it works, is like I was doing it anyway. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Skills largely work the same way. You spend 1 point and you get 2 skill ranks that you can put in whatever skill you want. So essentially each skill is worth half of a power point, but they also have more specialized skills. So you can spend 1 point and get 4 ranks of very specialized, like, specific skills. So if you, say, are good at piloting, instead of putting points into vehicles, you can say, well, I'm good at piloting, like, a plane or driving a boat or whatever, instead of having, like, that broad, general vehicle skill. I did have another thought about that, and I don't remember what it was. It's further down, so I'm going to see if I get to it in my notes. I think it was just, it was because disguise. Yeah, disguise is a separate skill instead of being part of deception, which was weird to me. Because, well, the skills, like skills in other games, like they're based on your ability scores. And you would think disguise would be based on your presence, which is essentially your charisma score. But it's based on awareness, which is essentially your wisdom score. And I can't wrap my head around that. I'm not sure why they would have disguise separate from deception and then based on awareness. Especially because you can't... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if just off the cuff, without you explaining anything, to me, disguise is a passive thing versus like the active version which would be, deception, right? Like you're engaging with somebody to be like, no, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, versus like disguise, like they're passively looking at you and being like, oh, you're supposed to be here, right? It's like yeah, which I mean, like I'm sure like you could argue either way, but like that is like the difference in my head.
I guess you might be thinking on the same track, because I was gonna say, like, acting like the person does require a deception check, so that might be it then, if disguise is like the passive blending in thing, and then actively trying to deceive someone is a deception check. I guess that could work. I don't know, it does feel like a weird split to me, but if it's more like the passive thing, then maybe that might make sense. Yeah, I think you might be on the same wavelength as the book there.
Well, I mean, if I had to split those up, I guess that's the only way I could think about it. I don't know if awareness makes sense, but definitely like the active and passive versions of that, like you have to be aware of what everybody else looks like for you to make it work. Like, I don't know, like you have to act normal, like keep it cool. Like,
yeah, I guess I can see it.
Yeah.
Other changes, there's more emphasis on reactions, which is very cool, especially for a superhero game where things should feel very fast-paced and, action movie-like. There's a lot more ways to unlock moves that you can do as a reaction with certain advantages. You can get like additional attacks if someone misses or whatever, or you can like do a grapple or something like that. Like you can react to things happening to you. And I think that's very cool, that like, because reactions don't get a whole lot of use in 3rd edition. There's more emphasis on presence, which is again your interaction skills or your interaction ability. Especially in combat, there's more emphasis on using interaction skills to like daze enemies or stun them or make them vulnerable or whatever. There is a very useful benchmark table, because the game has a bunch of measurements in it, but they're kind of arbitrary numbers, so they include a table that's like, this measurement is like this real world thing. Like if you're lifting a super heavy truck or whatever, then it's more easy to like gauge what that is. Like if you want to know the mass of a school bus, so your superhero can lift it off of a broken bridge or something, you don't have to try to figure out like how many tons is a school bus. It's like, here's what a typical benchmark for that is. That's super useful, honestly.
Yeah, that's really good, because I mean, I feel like you need superheroes to save people and do stuff, like interact with the world, and I think this is like, I like that they just kind of like cut the math out of it and just be like, here's where you need to be.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to make it a whole lot easier for running certain things as well. So this is a in the weeds sort of thing, but the way damage works has been changed. Essentially, when someone gets hit by an attack, if it is in 3rd edition, if someone gets hit by an attack, if it's an affliction, if it applies a condition or something, the DC to avoid that condition is 10 plus however many ranks of that affliction they have. So like if someone has a stunning whatever, maybe they zap you with electricity because they got like a stun baton or something. So if it's rank 4, then the difficulty to not get stunned is 10 plus 4. If it's a damaging thing and it's also rank 4, the difficulty is 15 plus 4. So it'd be like DC 19 to avoid damage. In 4th edition, it's all just 10 plus rank. Everything's just the same across the board, which I do like that. That simplifies things a bit. They do compensate by making damage more effective, because essentially like every damage roll is now 5 points easier, but that also means that on a success, you still get like a little bit of damage in this edition. You get worse effects if you fail, certainly. I guess I might need to go over how damage works in Mutants and Masterminds, just to be clear. You roll to hit, you roll your d20, you add your number to hit, but then the person getting hit rolls a resistance save, depending on what you hit them with. So if you are doing damage, they'll roll toughness versus the difficulty of your damage, and how much they succeed or fail determines what effect happens to them. Like, it could just be a hit, they could get dazed, they could get staggered, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the DC of that has been adjusted, because it's like every 5 steps is a different effect. So essentially, It's been brought like 5 points down, because it's just 10 plus the rank of the damage now. But that also means like they bump the damage up a bit. So it's harder for someone to just like completely shrug off an attack now.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think that's better to move the fight along, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, kind of talking about recent events, like Draw Steel dropped like a week ago or whatever, right? And that game is basically all about like there's no missed turns. It's just how effective it is. Like anytime someone takes an action, it progresses the resolution, right, of that encounter.
Like that, yeah, again, like it helps keep a good pace in the game. And also, like, it does kind of suck, like, if you make a roll and you land a hit, but then the other person is just like, it just bounces off of them because they rolled high at that moment. You know, I like that you can't just avoid, like, you have to roll very high to have no effect on you. I like that you can't just shrug it off by being, like, 1 or 2 higher than the DC. And that was most of my immediate thoughts of just flipping through the game. They do have other small changes. There's things like they have minions, which are like NPCs that you basically, like, if you do hit them, they suffer the worst effect of whatever your power does. So they're they're your minions, your goons, your cannon fodder. But they also have Menaces now, which are a step up. And they can do different things. They have more reactions. They can sacrifice minions to instantly succeed on a check, or at least avoid a check if you hit them with damage or something like that. So I do like that, because in a superhero story, you do have those stories where you have a bunch of heroes against one villain. But in a tabletop RPG, with the action economy, that villain is screwed no matter what. So, like, unless they're overpowered, they're kind of screwed. So I do like the idea of a menace who has a bit more options. But again, those are my immediate thoughts, and then I got into creating some characters. So, Ramon, let me introduce you. I wish I had thought of a cooler name for these guys. But let me introduce you to the Shield Squad.
Okay. The Shield Squad? Alright.
Yes, the Shield Squad, led by the hero Canadian Shield.
Oh, okay. Alright.
Named after the geographical so I made a bunch of superheroes, which I am known to do. Essentially, Canadian Shield, he is a legacy hero based off a World War II era hero who carries a impervious metal shield, a completely original idea. Please do not steal my OC.
Right.
But the modern Canadian Shield has a hard light shield that he can turn into different shapes. So that was fun to build.
Cool.
There is Cascade, who is a water controller. There's High Rise, who can change size and grow giant. And then there's the Owl, who is a cool, stealthy crime fighter. And so as I was building these characters, I basically would just look at, like, for the last 3, I looked at the templates that they had available. And then as I was building the character, I was like, well, what if I do this? What if I do this? And just making minor changes. And as I was getting to the flow of things, I could feel it like I still had to get used to, like, you know, there's new abilities and stuff. There's new advantages. I have to figure out what I want this character to have and what I want it to do. But it's similar enough to 3rd edition that I could get into a pretty good flow with it. There's no digital tools yet, unfortunately, but I feel like I made some okay-ish characters. Some things felt a little underpowered, some things felt like, oh, I wish I gave them this instead of this. But I was kind of getting into the flow, and I do have a better sense of it now that I did those characters.
Mm-hmm.
I made notes on, like, every thought I had. I don't know if I'm going to go through all of them, because some of them are just, like, not super important. I was just, like, as I was making Canadian Shield, like, because he could reshape the shield, I wanted to make, like, a cool dome that he can protect people in. And I had to do some mathing around, like, how the create power works and how it's volume based, which, I don't know, I feel like it would make more sense if it was like, I can create something based on this number of squares instead of based on this much volume. That feels like it's harder to figure out the math for, because I had to be like...
I mean, that's fair.
Like at one point I was like, I want his shield to be this many squares across. How much volume is a sphere that size? Or a dome that size? And then build the power based on that. And I'm like, that's kind of a pain. But that's my...
Isn't there like a dome power? I feel like there should be like a dome shield power already invented.
They do in the book, as you're like under the superpowers section, as you're looking at all the power effects they have, because the way the effects are, like, they're more like descriptions of things that you turn into however your power works. So for me, I would use the create power because I'm creating a shield dome. They do have like possible configurations and options and stuff. So if you look at the create power, it's like you can use create to create force constructs, and here's how you would make a force construct if you want that specific thing. My problem is that none of them fit exactly what I wanted to do. like, if you gave your hero enhanced senses, the book has an example of, like, here's how you would build a radar sense or sonar sense. They have examples like that under Create. It just didn't fit exactly what I wanted to do with it, so I had to kind of, like, fiddle with it. And I still had to figure out, like, how powerful I want it to be, because however many points you put into it determines the volume that you can create. I don't know, that was just like, I can kind of see why you would want to work with it that way. I just felt like it's easier to understand in terms of size than in terms of volume, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I guess the other thing would be that in narrative play, that shield can still be used as like a thing, but you don't really have squares in narrative, right? So maybe that's probably why, but I think that if anything, there should just be like steps, like you're like, this is a bus, this is how many strength you have to get to move it, right? There needs to be some sort of conversion like that, being like, all right, if you want to make a shield the size of an elephant, this is, or a shape of something the size of this weird world example, this is how many points it is.
Yeah.
Right, and then that equates out to this many squares or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's something, I guess. Maybe people, I feel like it's an easy equation that somebody could just put in a Google sheet or advise on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is. It's just, I don't want to have to do it.
I don't know, or maybe you should do it, Calvin, and stick it on our website. and then people can just use it, like, if they want to.
I might put the character sheets on the website. I don't know. I'll clean them up a bit because it's still full of like my own personal notes, but I'll see.
I don't know. Maybe keep the personal notes. I think that would be kind of fun. Well, if people want to see it, if they want to. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you want to do with their website. You're the boss around here, so.
No, we can do whatever. But yeah, so I did run through a couple of adventures with those characters after I made them. I did have some other thoughts, but again, they're like very minor things. There's certainly some new skills and stuff that I do really like. Just to mention quickly, I like that magic has its own skill now, as it did not before. But that's like, I like that now because it was a very common thing to do. You could have expertises in the game, so a magic character would usually have like expertise magic, but it was very common, so I just like that you could just have magic now. And the other skill that I liked was languages as a skill, since you can spend skill points on it, and those are cheaper than regular power points. It's essentially cheaper to learn more languages in 4th edition, which I like because I was making a character previously that would know several languages, but it was also super expensive to give them those languages, and it's like, I guess I should make this character better at using her superpowers than knowing languages, but narratively she should know more languages. So I like that that's easier.
Yeah, because I think it's like when you play the superhero game, learning a bunch of languages isn't the point, so they should just like give the people what they want anyway. Like, that's like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Like, it would be cool if this person just knew a bunch of languages, but would it help them not be knocked out? Like, I don't think so, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, it makes it was like, because I had to make that call. It was like, I could spend a point and know more languages, but if I do that, what am I going to take a point from? I'm going to be worse at some skills, or I'm not going to have a certain power ability or whatever. I don't know. I kind of prefer this. There's a lot in this game that it's like, I kind of wish I could copy this over to 3rd edition and just use it now, especially in the advantages, where there's a bunch that are like, they're described as command advantages, and they really fit for Canadian Shield, obviously, just because he's my own original character that I had in my head. But I pictured him as the sort of leader type who, takes point and helps direct people. And the command advantages really fit with that, and they give you like a lot of buff options, because there isn't a ton of buffing you can do in 3rd edition, at least not that I've figured out. Like, there's some specific things you can do, but there's way more options here.
So you can have more of a synergistic leader type character versus just like the blasty dude or the titty dude or like the grapply dude or whatever, right?
Yeah, like it's doable, but there's way more options for it here, and there's way more moves that you can do. There's some specific terminologies and stuff that have been added and updated. Some things that, again, they give you a lot more options. I don't know, I do want to get into like the actual things that I did, so I don't want to hang up too much on my notes. But again, there's a whole lot of stuff that was added. I might maybe write it out in a blog post or something in the future. But there are a bunch of changes that I largely like, some that I have to get used to, some that I'm a little more iffy on, and some math in the templates that I'm not sure is correct, and I think someone needs to look at that because some of those arrays do not seem to be mathed correctly. Unless I don't understand how arrays work anymore.
Maybe you don't, Calvin.
Maybe. Honestly, it's possible. Okay, but I ran a couple of things. One of them is the Doom room. Essentially, it's a room full of traps. So I basically just had the room. I rolled initiative, and after everyone's turn, the room would activate a single trap and target it at that person. And there are a bunch of robots in the room. So I just had the characters going through that. I did have some struggles on rolling. I don't know why it decided that I deserve low rolls, but I guess it did.
Yeah, that's always when Calvin's trying to test anything. Like, your luck is horrible.
It's wild. But yeah, the heroes were pretty good at dealing with the generic robots, which is nice. What I noticed is that when something gets damaged, it's very easy for it to get stunned. And stunned is just like no actions on your turn, which I guess comes with the territory of making damage more of a threat since the DC for it is lower. I could just see it being annoying that you're not able to do anything and that stun happens so easily, but I mean, I guess it's kind of it's not like it's not a thing. What was difficult for me to remember though is that I have to roll for stunned at the end of a character's turn, so it kind of feels like an extra step on there as opposed to stun just going away at the end of their turn. Like they have to roll to save from it. But in general, the characters were pretty effective, especially at avoiding certain traps and stuff. Like, again, there's no more parry defense, there's no more close-up defense, but you do still have your dodge, and that's essentially what you use to avoid area attacks. So it's kind of like that singular defense on its own. You do have fortitude and will still, so those, again, I use for traps. There was a... I don't know why I made a note of this, but there's a stun gas trap, and it made more sense to me to be a fortitude save, but it was a dodge save. It's whatever, it's fine. The more important thing is that the game flow, once I started getting into it, it did feel the same as 3rd edition. And 3rd edition is really smooth once you actually get into the play of the game. So other than occasional stutters, like remembering to save from stunned, I was getting into the vibe of it.
Good.
Especially with the heist adventure, it was a couple of villains, Rant and Rave, these siblings, and a handful of goons, just in a bank. I really quickly went through that. I had High Rise stay outside because I was like, I don't know how tall this bank is. You can stay outside. There's actually a whole thing with size and damage and how that works, but I know they're going to talk about that soon, so I didn't want to say too much about it. I will say that I had some trouble figuring out, like, the book suggests certain things like, increasing damage as a character gets larger, and that makes total sense for me, but the way it's written, it feels like, do you want me to go over the power level damage? Like, because at a certain level, there's obviously caps of how much damage you can do, right? So it's like,
right.
Do I get to do more damage over my level if I use the growth power? Like, should I be lowering my attack roll? It didn't specify that. I just did it because it made sense. Like, because usually it's like, you have a higher attack roll, you have less damage. You have higher damage, you have a lower attack roll. That's usually the balance. So I was like,
right.
They're suggesting as your character gets larger, they can do more damage. I lowered the attack roll because it made sense to do so. But at the same time, it's like, I got a big old hand and a big old boot. Like, that would be harder to avoid. You can do, like, area damage when you get to a certain size. And I like that that's specified. But also, I don't know, it's just, I wish the language on that was a bit clearer. But I know that's something that is specifically getting looked at because I saw people talking about it.
Yeah, maybe it could be like a clarification or an addendum or something like that. Because, you feel like these things just get rolled out at like 90% done because, you kind of have to. Yeah.
Pretty much. Like, I know, they're putting it out there so people can see it and test it out and everything. That was one of the things that I was like, we had Alex on a couple weeks ago, and I was about to ask him, like, if I use the growth power, can I just go over power level limit? It was just weirdly written to me.
I mean, that's fair. I feel like if you're big, you're just easier to hit. I think that's a fair trade-off.
Yeah, oh no, your defenses definitely go down. That totally makes sense. That is specified. Yeah. It was just my attack roll that I was kind of like, because it says, the modifier to the character's damage rank, like, that increases at each size. The way it's worded, it sounds like it increases the power level limit, but then later it's like, a bit different. I don't know. It was just a thing I had a bit of confusion on, but I think that's going to be cleared up.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I mean, hey, I don't know, hey, folks listening, let us know what you think, what you interpret from those rules, and what would you do in that situation?
Yeah, like especially because I don't want to keep hanging on to this, but like the way it was worded, it made it sound like if you're a certain amount of sizes larger, then your attacks count as area attacks, but the area is like a 1x1 space, and I'm like that can't be right. I have to be misunderstanding this. I don't know. I think it's just me.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like it's a little bit too noodly to think too hard on. I mean,
it does feel like the sort of thing that like at the table you'll just be like, no, you can just do X because you're Y, so don't worry about it too much. But I kind of want to just work from the book and see what I got. So other than that, I don't want to get too into the weeds with it, although I will say the owl, my cool vigilante guy, he got some really bad rolls. I'm just going to say he was going to sneak up on the villains, but they got a nat 20 to spot him, and then he was going to hit them with a gas grenade. But the DC was kind of low. I think it was more like it would be more effective on like the minions and stuff, but they just kind of like shrugged it off, and I was like, oh, rough. But that's just the dice rolling. That's not the game itself. But yeah, I think I kind of want to clean up my notes a bit, and maybe I'll put them online for people to just see what my thoughts were, because I don't want to like ramble through every single thought I had, even though I wrote down every single thought I had. But if I were to say something overall, it would just be like, there's a lot of additions here that I really like to skills and advantages. There's a lot of things I have to adjust to, like the way abilities have changed, and there's some stuff that I don't think I got into that I could use some clarification on. And there's some things in the book that I feel like the math doesn't make sense to me. Like how some certain arrays are calculated on some characters. I feel like I'm missing something.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, maybe that's just me. Maybe I am missing something. It's just, it didn't look correct, and then on some of them it did.
Right. Well, I mean, I feel like there's just like some tools missing here for players that maybe can alleviate that. And then once, the game starts going and everybody starts doing stuff, it'll be clearer, right?
Yeah, that is one thing. Like, because we do know that they're no longer working with the previous developer who made like the 3rd edition character builder. So hopefully that is something that shows up soon. But I think in general, I like a lot of the changes that are made here. There's a lot of specific ones that I really like. Part of me is wondering, like, because you know how Pathfinder had its remaster? Pathfinder 2nd edition had a remaster. Part of me is like, I kind of wish certain things were just attached onto the game as part of a remaster. Like the languages skill or the command advantages, they can work in 3rd edition mechanically, a lot of them could. Like a lot of the new reaction stuff. Part of me is just like, I wish I could keep playing the game I'm already playing, but with these new things. But we'll see as the game develops, like, if I adjust.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, that's just a discussion between you and your GM.
True.
Like, for real. I'm sure Alex would be like, yeah, whatever, man. Just like, like Calvin, like, honestly, out of all the players, you're like the least power gamer player ever. So like, I'm pretty sure Alex is like, yeah, Calvin, whatever. Like, just make sure the funny's still funny. Like,
I don't know. I just like losing sometimes. It's very funny. Like, someone has to know what that villain's power does, and if everyone succeeds on their saves, we'll never know.
Yeah. We all, yep, that's for sure. The GM needs to have some fun too. And thanks, Calvin. We appreciate it.
Oh, no, I mean, I get it. But yeah, I have other thoughts. I'll probably save them for later or make like a post about them. I'll see how that goes because I don't want to ramble too much. But like I said, in general, I like a lot of the new stuff. There's some stuff I have to get used to, maybe with more playing. And part of me feels like I wouldn't mind just, yoinking some things and putting them in a 3rd edition game. But there is some pretty big overhauls that it's worth being its own game. I just wouldn't have minded like if it was a supplementary thing too.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, you let us know if you like. Go check out the thought. Calvin, just put the stuff on the website.
Yeah, the stuff's on the website.
so that people can go to it.
There'll be links.
Trying to drive traffic. There will be links below for all the things Calvin may or may not do, but probably will do.
Probably.
Eventually.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy week for me, to be honest. But yeah, without wanting to ramble too much, that is where I will wrap up my thoughts on the game for now. I don't know, Ramon, anything you want to add before we roll into the outro?
No, although I do see in the book there's lots of gold armored individuals who may or may not be space aliens and or cyborgs and or people in robot suits, and I don't know where they got that idea from. So let's see.
Oh my gosh. Do people even know? I don't know that we've talked about briefly that we were going to start playing Mutants and Masterminds, recording episodes on the channel in like 2018, 2019. But we never put them out. We did get art for them though.
Yeah. Well, maybe. We'll see how the future goes. Let's go into the outro and maybe we'll see Gold Knight in the future.
Yes. All right, folks. Well, thanks for hanging out and listening to this episode. Again, if you have some thoughts on Mutants and Masterminds 4th edition, drop them in the comments on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you happen to be. Also, if you are on YouTube, please check out the links below. If you're into the Lancer RPG, there's a bunch of Lancer writers and creators we've talked to. There's writers and creators for other RPGs we talked about. In addition, I do have to shout out the Untold Stories Project, where I'm at occasionally playing Mutants and Masterminds. Otherwise, I do want to give Ramon a chance to mention Mechanized Body and Versus.
Yeah, Mechanized Body, folks. If you are like the people who like Lancer, which means you like us. If you like Lancer and robot games and Gundam and all that cool fun stuff, we have a game that we're working on, me and NHP Shaka, aka Trey. I guess Trey, aka NHP Shaka, whichever way he wants to do it. We're working on a card-based tabletop RPG that features mechs and mech pilots. You make a mech and you make a deck of maneuvers that represents your pilot, and then you pilot your mech with your friends against the GM, doing cool card stuff and robot stuff and shooting things and unifying the system that you're in before calamity happens. And then there's another game I'm working on as well, which is Project Versus, which is my fighting game TTRPG. That one's super cool. That one's a solo event, solo dev thing that I'm working on. Check it out. That's going to be linked on our website, and for Mechanized Body, there'll be a link to our Discord. Please join. We're looking for players all the time. Games are pretty much run every week. And hey, if you like cards, I like mechs, and you like punches and kicks, just check out anything that I just said.
All right. In addition, I do want to quickly mention that I'm going to be at Fan Expo on Saturday, which is going to be the weekend after this episode comes out. So I don't know. I might see people there. I have no idea. I've never done a meetup before, and I wasn't really planning to, but I'm going to be there. I will physically be in the place. So if you're going there, then who knows? Maybe you will see me, but you won't recognize me. But that's it. So we're gonna wrap things up here for all of our GMs and players out there who are fitting their capes for this new edition of this superhero tabletop RPG. Just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.